Thank you, Jimmy. Lovely introduction. Humbled as ever. I'll jump into your questions. So, how did you get into the industry? Is the first one. Um, what was I doing? I was around 11 years old. That's not when I got into the industry. That's when I walked into my local theatre, which was the Theatre Royal Stratford East in East London, where I was from. Uh, I didn't know I was getting into an industry. I was just getting into acting at the time and showing off a little bit on stage. But I found this glorious kind of inclusive, welcoming space. It was completely in tune with its locality and the demographics of who was around that space. And I wanted to act, and I also wanted to rap at the time. And I guess I often describe my career as a series of realizing that I'm not very good at the things that I wanted to do and taking a little sidestep and trying something else. So I moved from acting to directing, and I moved from rapping to kind of music producing and then DJing. And I thought I was going to be a DJ ultimately, but turns out there were other plans. So I ended up on BBC Radio 1 Extra when I was 18 years old. Was when I'd stopped acting. So it's all a bit unorthodox, and there's no kind of training involved. I just hung around in a theatre for about 16 years uh, until they kind of they got bored of me or I got bored of them. I'm not sure which way it was. And then I left Stratford East when around 28, 29 years old. And started going and exploring other theatres and started making some work at places like the Young Vic as an assistant director. And then I started applying for schemes, and I guess ultimately it's schemes that have really kind of helped elevate me to where I am now as an artistic director. So I joined the Regional Theatre Young Directors Scheme, and I moved up to Liverpool, and I was working in Liverpool for 2 years, and then I applied to be the associate director at, at Manchester Royal Exchange, and I was there for 4 years, and then I came back down to London after that and started running ATC. There are all sorts of little bits in there, I guess. I'm jumping over, but I hope we'll pick up in some of the other questions as we get to them. Um, but that I don't know, that kind of slippery path from being on stage to being a creative all happened around a show called Ask the Mayor. It was probably around the time that London was moving back towards having an elected mayor again for the first time. So that was Ken Livingstone, and John Z.D. was making a piece with the Young Company at Stratford East, and they needed an on-stage DJ, and I was the kid in the youth theatre who DJ'd, so I did a bit of that. And then I got invited back to DJ on a poetry night that was on the main stage at Stratford East. Then someone asked me to write a bit of music for something, so it was all very, very gradual, and I just never really knew how to say no to anything. So I ended up with this kind of hyphenate career where I was producing and DJing and directing and acting, just doing everything for a bit. And then I've slowly started to stop doing some of those things, I think. Let's move on to the next one. What challenges did you face? Uh, so I think this is interesting. I don't feel like I faced any challenges whilst I was at Theatre Royal Stratford East. Because I didn't really know what the sector was. I didn't know what the industry was. Most of the people at Stratford East spoke how I spoke, came from a similar sort of background to the one that I did. Um, and then leaving Stratford East, I can't remember, one of the first theatres I went to was probably Hampstead Theatre. And I remember just kind of going, oh, they're not all like Stratford. That's different. Uh, and then Young Vic, and again starting to kind of meet people who had been to Oxbridge and realizing there was this whole other side to the scene. And so who knows if they're chatting? There's certainly barriers that I've constantly been aware of. The main one being kind of the intersection of class and ethnicity. Um, Suddenly realizing that you haven't been afforded the training that other people have had. You didn't know that you could go to drama school. You didn't really know that that was an option, and certainly couldn't have thought about affording it. Um, and when I talk about class, I guess I'm really talking about poverty. I think it's a much easier kind of demarcation to just go, could you afford to do the things that you hoped you'd be able to do, or was life a bit of a struggle? Kind of free school meals, and what do we do with the last five? Or does it go on the electricity key, or do we go and buy some bread and some eggs, kind of thing? Um, so that was there, but again, I didn't know about this until I got older and looked back and went, oh right, okay, there's this those who can and those who probably shouldn't, or they're certainly not as invited, I guess. Race, I feel like I kind of just joined an everlasting battle within the British theatre industry to continue trying to put different people on stages in positions of power within boards, boardrooms, etc. Um, and then educational attainment, I guess. But again, like, is that my own chip on my shoulder that I didn't sit in a debating chambers at Oxford, so I can't write a brilliant, I don't know, job application in the same way, or make that pitch. Again, I'm starting to shift my mindset around these things now, but as I was coming into it, every single one of them felt like a barrier, and I guess race and class feel continual in a way. Um, what are your career highlights? It's an interesting one because I want to know how to kind of do this one without just sounding like I'm showing off, I guess. So what's interesting in why they're career highlights? I guess at the age of 18, getting my own radio show on the BBC felt like I'd achieved something. And I'd said to my mum at the time, as I dropped out of sixth form college, I said, "Give me 2 years and I promise I'll be a superstar DJ." And she said, "You better, or you're going right back to college." And so I just worked really hard. I got a day travel card and I'd go to every single record label in London, say, "What have you got? What's hot? What's new? What's fresh?" To try and make sure that my show just had that edge on some of the competition. Um, and I think that proactivity, I guess, is what I'm proud of, because within a year and a half, I had moved from pirate radio onto this national broadcaster. Um, what else? What else? In terms of music, on my 30th birthday, I was DJing to 85,000 people in Stratford in the Olympic Stadium at the Paralympic opening ceremony, and in Stratford where I was born, on my 30th birthday. And a ridiculous amount of people, and the Paralympics as well. And again, that's all like weird networks. That's because Jenny Seeley, who runs Grey Eye, the leading disability arts company, was the artistic director of the Paralympics. Her ex-husband, partner, used to be the head of education at Theatre Royal Stratford East. So when I was a young DJ coming up, he kind of knew me, and all these little circles and cycles that you find yourself in. That's what I scribbled down. I guess two two things, I guess, that are about other people that I'm really proud of. One's a show I did called The Sound of Yellow, where we worked with 60 participants in Southwark and Lambeth, associated with the Young Vic, and kind of 40 of them, 50 of them were all on a 12-step program of recovery from substance misuse. And that show just sits with me. We did a kind of big 6-month-long process of making it and going to them and making it with them in their spaces and slowly getting stories and empowering people to be able to kind of stand and stand proud in their own narrative, I guess, of recovery, and what that meant for them felt really important. And also, just directing 60 people in a very small room is very difficult. So very proud that we managed to pull that off. Another thing that's about other people that I'm proud of is when I got to Manchester, Sarah Frankham, who was the artistic director of the Royal Exchange, said, "I'd like this place to be a home for artists, local artists." And so I managed to raise £365,000 from Esme Fairbairn and a couple of other funding organisations and trusts to create a thing called the Open Exchange, which is an artist development scheme at the Manchester Royal Exchange. Hope it's still running. We managed to get funding for the first 3 years, and I left after the second year. And that was all about kind of upskilling people in collaboration, just smushing artists together and giving them space to go and play freely with no expected outcome. Am I allowed to swear a little bit, Jimmy? Just a little bit. Yeah, super. So another thing I'm proud of, and this relates to the Open Exchange, is I won the Genesis Future Directors Award. Which means you get like 7 weeks to make a play, and then it's only on for 11 days, but the press aren't invited. And what I loved about that is I call it the Fuck Up in the Dark Award, because no one sees it. Like, if you get it wrong, if it doesn't quite go right, it's not splashed all over the middle pages of the Guardian, so you never get a job again. It's kind of all about support and nurture and development and growth. And then David Land, who was running the Young Vic at the time, would say, and what, you've got 11 shows, so that's 11 previews. I expect to see you here every day working with those actors, making it a bit better, coming in, seeing just where do you want to get it. So I brought that approach to the open exchange. Really, it was a kind of do it in the dark, make mistakes, fail harder, so that when you're out there making your first piece that you want to take to Edinburgh or whatever it is, you've got more chance of hitting the goals that you've set yourself and therefore succeeding. So really proud of the open exchange. There were 3 different strands to it. There was a strand called React, where we'd offer provocation and people would just artistically react to it with groups that they chose to. So they might go, I want to work with a cellist, a puppeteer, and a juggler to explore modern fairy tales, or whatever the provocation is. So lots of fun things came out of that. That then ended up in a festival called the Collab Festival, which was, like I say, all about collaboration and new embryonic work. What else? Where else does pride sit in my life? I guess one of the most high-profile shows I made was a show called Blue Orange. Had some actors you might have heard of in it. One called Daniel Kaluuya, one called David Haig, one called Luke Norris. All really brilliant actors. I remember sitting on my granddad's lap watching David Haig when I was a kid, and here he is, stood in a dressing room talking about which eye always meant to come down at the start of Act 2 or whatever it is. So yeah, all very unusual. And brilliant Daniel Kaluuya, like, what an actor, what a talent, what a formidable activist. Brilliant man. And now I'm running a little company called Actors Touring Company, and I'm very proud of that. It means I get to lead by example and set some precedents and bang my pots and pans very loudly and take my soapbox all around the country. Is that me beeping? Let me stop that beeping. Yep, that is me. Stop the beeps. Next question. What career advice would you give your 16-year-old self? Probably something like, yeah, there are limitations, but the main ones that will stop you from getting anywhere are the ones you place on yourself. I think we can be our own biggest obstacles, the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves that no one else is really listening to. I'm again sitting down with David Land and going, just really worried about how young I am, David, and no one's going to take me seriously. And he just went, got no idea how old you are, Matthew, nor do I care. I was like, oh, okay. So again, we yes, there are limits and barriers and obstacles, but in every way, each one of them is also a springboard if we choose to use it as such. So I think that's what I'd say to myself, and I'd say you can do anything, you can be anything, but you need to invest time, effort, energy in being those things. Who are some of the people that have helped you? Again, like in hindsight, in retrospect, I think lots of people start to reveal themselves. But when you're a kid, you're just like, great. Yeah, like I realized Clint Dyer when I was 15 or 16. Clint Dyer, who's now the deputy director of the National Theatre, but at that time he was a friend of Stratford East and he'd come through their youth theatre. Got me 2 auditions when I was 15. One of them was with this guy called Jude Law. I had no idea who he was at the time. And another one was with a guy called Armando Iannucci. I had no idea who he was at the time. So I'm just like wandering around, and I just remember this kind of slightly charming Scots Italian dude saying, this is a bag of screws, you're going to pretend to eat it, and then you're going to see someone be sick. I was like, well, that's the audition. Okay. I took this bag of screws. He said, they're chips, they're not screws. Okay. Pretending to eat them, see someone be sick, and I just rolled up the top of the bag and just looked at her a bit. And so you've got the job. I was like, oh, okay. So like, I mean, like, what I realised when I look back is there were loads of interventions like that, loads of them by loads of people all the time, and a part of it just came from being around Stratford East and it being such a generous, inclusive space. Philip Headley, when I first started making beats, he said, "Oh, tell me a bit more about that." I said, "Well, I hit the pads and the drums come out, and then I can change drums to keyboards and make songs." He said, "Oh, you're a composer." Yeah, I guess I am a composer. Cut to 5 years down the line, I'm writing songs for pantomime at Theatre Royal Stratford East. I'm writing raps. Philip Headley says, "Oh, you're a lyricist, are you?" cut to 4 years down the line, I'm sitting on the musical lyricist course at Theatre Royal Stratford East that they've set up. So again, I feel like whilst I didn't know it, the first from 11 to, gosh, 28 or something like that was just this incubator period that I didn't really realise was going on. Being asked to join the board of directors at the age of 18 by Philip Headley and sitting next to Tony Hall, now Lord Hall, former head of BBC. It's just like wild. But when you're 14, you don't know, and when you're 21, you don't really know either, I think. And I'll probably look back at this point in my life and go, I didn't really know then. Maybe we never know. Who else was around then? I'll tell you who else was around then. A guy called Ultz, Ultz, Ultz. And his name stands for Unity, Love, Truth and Zeal. He's an exceptional theatre artist, maker. He designed Jerusalem. He won the Olivier for the design of Jerusalem. I know, again, known through Theatre Royal Stratford East. He walked in when I was DJing on that show, Ask the Mayor, and he said, I'm looking for someone to help me write a new musical. And I think it might be you. I said, okay, I'll do that. Like, whatever. Anyway, we end up adapting this Rodgers and Hart musical called The Boys from Syracuse, which is based on Comedy of Errors. We turn it into a hip-hop musical, strip out all the seats in the auditorium, put up crash barriers, leave the doors to the bar open, hire fake bouncers to stand on the door to the theatre so it feels more like a club. And then the whole thing done as a concert with huge monitors up on the sides and everyone rapping into microphones and facing out. Again, like, I just turned up to work. At that point, there was no desire to be a director or to be a musician. I just did things that I enjoyed doing. I've written down Orts' name twice. That must mean how important he is to me. I tell you what he is, because then in 2007, and I've never directed anything, and I had no interest in directing anything, I don't think. He said, there's a play by Jean Genet called The Blacks, and I think we can do a similar thing to The Blacks that we did to The Boys, where we turn it into this hip-hop musical. You up for it? Yeah, sure, Orts, let's do that. Oh, and I want you to co-direct it as well. Oh, don't really know what co-directing means, but I'll sit next to you while you direct it. And he said, yeah, that's kind of what it means. And so I ended up co-directing. I learned so much. I remember saying to an actor, why don't you say it like this? And Alt said, no, you never tell an actor how to say a line. You help them find how to say the line by talking about the psychology of what's going on. Oh, okay. So again, all these tiny little lessons just picking up. It would be remiss to not mention the brilliant women that have also been instrumental in my life. Let's start with Sue Emmers, who runs the Genesis Network at the Young Vic. She also runs the Regional Theatre Young Directors Scheme. I used to be slightly terrified of her. I am not anymore. I think she's brilliant, but she will just drill down into your very soul to make sure that the things that you're doing and the path you're on is the path that you want to be on. She'll really just check the big why. Why do you want to be a director? Why do you want to work with puppetry? Why do you want to work at the Almeida? Why do you want to do this? Why? And she's become a really good friend since then. When I moved up to Liverpool, the Everyman and Playhouse was run by Gemma Bodney at the time, who was really supportive of my career whilst I was there. I got to direct one of the first plays I made by myself, a play called Scrappers. Not I made by myself. I was left in charge of the room. There were lots of other people also making the play. And that was lovely in the studio up at the Playhouse and watching the new Everyman be built and opened and how you kind of try and make a people's palace of a theatre. And then without a doubt, Sarah Frankham at the Royal Exchange, a woman who leads with absolute integrity. I love the fact that she doesn't really blab on about it. She just does it. And you often find there are those who can do the talk and maybe slightly under-deliver, and then those who are quietly changing the world. And I think she's one of the latter, ultimately. You know, turning up at Lambda and immediately getting rid of audition fees. That huge barrier to working class kids that says you can't afford the train journey and you can't afford the 80 quid or whatever it is to pay to be seen. And she just went, well, why don't we create a model where we don't need that income? Why don't we find that elsewhere? And so suddenly you start to get the changes happening in the makeup of the student body, she's also looking at the teaching staff and trying to decolonize some of that teaching and going, well, why do we center kind of European whiteness in as the kind of the top of theatrical skills, and why is naturalism and Stanislavski and Michael Chekhov, why do we hold them up on such pedestals? Why are we not looking at no theatre and traditions from West Africa and Greece and Egypt with equal weight? So I enjoy that, and again, changing the staff body to reflect the student body as well. They're my influential humans. Next question is, what advice would you give to someone wanting to go into your career now? Which bit is the first bit, I'd say? Which bit of my career? Probably the artistic director bit, or the theatre maker bit, because that holds lots of it. I'd say why. I'd really drill down into why. It can be slightly thankless being an artist. Constantly, just like, I don't know, it's like drug addiction, isn't it? Like you're on to the next one. The next one will be better than the last one. Trying to get the same hit you got the first time. So I'd just go, why? Why is that the life that you want? And if all the questions you ask, like, because I am an artistic being, because if I don't express, then I feel pain, because if I don't express, then my trauma wells up in me. If I don't express whatever it is, like, why have you got it? What is the thing you've got to get out of you, and why? And then who for? Is it for self, or is it for other people? And just kind of checking that. And again, I don't think there's a right answer. I just think you should know thyself when stepping on this path. And I used to do this thing, and I still try and do it, where I like try and why myself into oblivion. Like every time you answer the question why, get to the end of that new answer and ask why again, and go down another level, down another level, down another level, until you hit like quantum physics or something, and then you can't go any further, and you go, right, got the answers, and it's F equals big squiggly something. I don't know, it's a formula, but you know what I mean? Like, I want to tell stories. Why? Because there's something about stories that can change the way people think and feel and connect with each other. And actually, I think, like, it's not a question that's been asked, is it? But if I drill down into my own why, there are two parts of it, and I have to be really honest about that. And one part of it is the kid who walked into Stratford East needing to show off, needing to stand on stage. And I think that's about a kind of attention deficit in my childhood that I was trying to find elsewhere. And so all of that just kind of comes along, and maybe it's not the same thing, but who knows? My therapist will help me work that out. And then there's empathy and connection and understanding, and I think that's why the theatre that I make is really, really aware of its audience. I don't really do kind of fourth wall, pretending you're not there plays. Even if I get a play like that, I promise I will look out and talk to you at some point, because it's about the live experience, the shared experience of being together collectively and having a ritual of change and transformation. And I guess I genuinely believe that if we can place people very close to other people's perspectives, some of that perspective might bleed through, and we'll have a bit more understanding for the lives that we've seen, and therefore we'll take that out into the world. And I also just enjoy, like, I think the theatrical space is a place of imagination, but it's a place to play games as well. So we can try out some slightly dangerous testing ideas in the theatrical space, knowing that we'll all walk out into the bar and have a conversation about it afterwards, and that's where the real work's going to happen. I have no idea what the time is, but
it's you're in good time. It's 2 minutes to 10. So yeah, that's brilliant. I'm just going to take you off spotlight, right? So that
I took myself off spotlight for a moment because it was seeing me. Most unnerving.
Oh, you're like, oh, okay.
Oh, there he is.
I am genuinely a sort of technical imbecile, so it always takes me a lot longer. I just see my Gaumond trace telling me to do this. I don't know how I actually do this. No, I'm not quite sure. Guys, do you know how I do this?
You click buttons on the corner
of
there
we go, there we go.
Yep.
It's still Matt still on Spotlight for people? No, great, okay. Wonderful, Matt, thank you so much. That was absolutely brilliant. Really interesting. I'm going to hand, just because I'm mindful that you've got to get off to auditions, and I've got to shoot to take a small lady camping. What questions? I haven't done this, but I'll pick up you separately now. Does anyone have any questions?
I just wanted to say it's brilliant, Matthew, really wonderful to hear about how impacting Stratford East, because I think as a person that comes from somewhere that didn't have a theatre, it's very important to find those places, if they look like a theatre or don't look like a theatre, you know, and I think, after coming through the pandemic as well, having somewhere to walk through a door and be seen and heard is vital. So it's brilliant to hear that from you. Thank you.
Thanks, Louise.
It's really nice, all those, you know, the little lessons that you say about learning, because I think mentors and mentorship is such a huge, it's been an absolute certainty of why we're there today. It's little people going, and it's people sort of, people educating you without putting you down. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, that thing of, oh no, you don't want to, you probably shouldn't act that, you know, no to another act. That's just something you don't do. It's the etiquette. And it's all those hidden and silent rules that you're not aware of, but you can feel them. And someone who's, and just, I mean, yeah, it's having those people and surrounding yourself by them, like, oh, right, okay. And I'm sure you've got like your vinyl behind you, a load of those from different people that you go, oh, I've learned that, that's been passed on. And it's done in a way of kindness, not which you do get in some places. Like you get, and that you get made to feel stupid because you didn't know. And that is an overarching thing that I think, oh, it needs to just be taken out of our industry immediately, because you hear it and the hand never goes up again. It doesn't. But mate, it's honestly, thank you so much. It's been really great to hear. On
that note, Jimmy, I've got a quick question about.
Oh, have you? I'm sorry, I beg your pardon.
I teach direction to young people, and I just thought most learning, I think, comes from being directed. Certainly, if you're an actor and you work with lots of different directors, you kind of know what you like and what you don't like, and what works for you and what doesn't. And I just wondered, like Jimmy was saying then about getting good advice and whatnot, whether or not you could offer like maybe your top tips for direction for any young people that might be watching this either now live or in the future, as to kind of how to get started, what that process is like, just a few sort of quick tips.
Yeah, I guess some of the stuff like that I think about for actors, like make whatever you're doing about the other people on stage. How are you trying to change what's happening? In terms of direction, I'll always kind of trying to think about some of the stuff I've been doing recently in the audition room. I'll always look at punctuation. I think lots of people ignore punctuation. So, for example, there's a simple line that we've been looking at in auditions recently where it goes, oh, comma, yeah, exclamation. I said, take the O, that's your thinking time. The yeah is your quick lie. So they go, oh, buy some time. Yeah, it's got the exclamation after it. No, again, I can't act anymore. Don't think I can. But what everyone did was just go, oh, yeah. I'm like, there's a comma between those two words. What's it there for? There's two slightly distinct parts of a single thought that need, like in a musical notation, they'd be tied together, wouldn't they? You draw a line tying them together. So I think about that quite a lot. I think about musicality. I think about here's a fun game: the functional word in a line of text. So essentially, every line of text is an urge to communicate with another person. And all you might want to say, and sometimes in the morning you do this, you just go, tea. But depending on which circumstances you're in, you might say, oh, sorry, could I have a cup of tea, please? Or, so what's the functional word in the entire sentence? Most of those words are kind of superfluous, and they're about customs and politeness and manners and where we are and status. So what's the urge? The urge is tea. Cool. What's the response? Get your own. Own. So again, what's the functional? Like tea. Own. You do it. I love that game. It's called Long Beach Telegram. And I play it like a game of bingo with actors. So I've underlined what I think it is, and we just go through having a conversation, and you see if the scene still holds together like that. I use a thing called Stop Think whilst working with actors, and this is once we're off book and we're up and we're running scenes. At any moment, I just say stop, and I name a character and I say think, and they just start letting their inner monologue out of their face until I say carry on. And I want to know all of the things they're thinking about, how warm the room is, a sweat that's starting to form around their neck. I can't believe she just said that. Carry on. And sometimes I'll just say, stop, think, and you suddenly get the whole company all doing it all at once and just working out. And it allows you just to kind of really unpick all of the detailed moments as you're moving through. There's some tips.
That was great, thanks.
Oh, mute, Jimmy, mute. There he is.
I hate that. Anyway, can't wait till we can all get together again properly. Right, mate, thank you so much. That was a brilliant answer, as they've all been. And yeah, thank you so much for your time. It's been spectacular, and have a lovely day at auditions.
Auditions, yeah, for the Wiz coming to Hope Mill this Christmas.
Hope Mill, yeah. No, share the hell out of that. Looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, cool.
Right.
Thanks for inviting me in. Lovely to see you.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.